we are going to spend some time going through my neighborhood that I grew up in. Uh, I'm going to ask you to roll back in time. I was actually born March of 1970. And so things look different now than they did then. The street we are on currently is 34th Avenue. 34th Avenue is the one street that goes directly through what we call Parkway. You can get it at Sunrise Boulevard and it will go all the way through to Broward Boulevard. We folks who grew up in Parkway, we know Parkway, the borders are Sunrise Boulevard to 441, up to Broward Boulevard and over to 31st. And so this is the house that I grew up in. It looks far different now because of the foliage. But I do want to point out one tree that was here, which is the sea grape tree, which is a lot bigger now. So this was the house I grew up in. When I grew up in here, it was white and brown. We kept it painted. That was our utility house, which is where I got my first bicycle stolen from. The house is a 2-bedroom, one bath house. And we lived here until 1988. So most of my memories are in this house.
We grew up in a little city called Parkway, which is just, I'm so proud to say that, I'm from Parkway. And for when people know Parkway, it's this automatic connection that, yeah. And when they don't, it's like, oh, Parkway? Yes, it's Parkway.
I spent an inordinate amount of time right here, just about every day, at the park. This was our favorite place to come and play every day. I honed my basketball skills right here at this park.
We first met each other around the neighborhood. We grew up in an area called Parkway, which is the area between Broward Boulevard and Sunrise Boulevard, 31st and 441. A lot of great people grew up in Parkway, and Rod lived on the north side of it, up near the swap shop, and I lived maybe midway. So we met each other at the basketball courts and around in the neighborhood growing up.
Harvey would be a person who came from humble beginnings. I mean, we're all proud of the fact that, we were raised and reared in Parkway. And we carried that as a badge of honor of saying that great things come out of that community, and we're still doing great things.
6th grade was the year I decided that I was going to box anybody, all comers. So this little 1 square area is where we would slap box. And my theory or my goal was always to slap box the biggest and baddest guys at the middle school. Because if I could beat them slap boxing, open hand, you had to hit open, you could hit as hard as you wanted, but it had to be open hand. But if you could beat them slap boxing, you could ultimately send the message that I can beat you fighting. And so I became arguably either the top or the second best slap boxing guy. And this was our proving ground. So middle school for me on the homeboy side was a nice ground because I was able to establish myself in the pecking order, and believe it or not, had a lot less problems than I probably would have had had I not established myself as the slap boxing king.
Growing up, you had to show you had some toughness in you. You had to throw hands every once in a while. Sometimes you got beat up. Sometimes you did the beating up. But you had to show that you was willing to throw hands.
Middle school was very, very important for me. I did play in the band. And so around this corner was the first time where I saw some little kids smoking cigarettes. And in a flash, I had to make a decision. So we come out of band practice, they give us a break, and we go around there and they smoking cigarettes. Now, this is middle school. This is middle school in the 80s, right? And it was like, okay, do you want to smoke or not? And I immediately walked away because I knew that that was not for me. I can't tell you why I knew, how I knew. Of course, they were around the corner. Nobody was going to find out. But I had an opportunity to take on smoking cigarettes in middle school, and I didn't. The other thing in band, which I loved, I was fortunate enough to be a drummer. So my 3 goals in life I wanted at that age was to be a professional drummer, a professional boxer, or to be some kind of professional. Now, in middle school, I didn't know what kind of professional, but I knew some kind of professional because I liked that guys wore suits to work. So I didn't know what was for me, but I knew that. So started boxing, played in the band, in the drums, and of course, did all the other stuff that middle schoolers do. Mom has been a rock, a guiding force, a person that has given mother wit, has given godly gospel, godly guidance from when I was 1 until the current day. My dad, who passed when I was 24, impacts me sometimes at my oddest moments, because I realize now, being a man, now having a house, now having children, now having the pressures of life, what it means to be a man, a father, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, an owner, an employer. I wonder, would Dad be proud? Would he say, the things that I tried to teach you, I see that you got them?
As a young boy, Ronnie was a child that grew up with an ambition. From a very early age, he knew that he was interested in being an accountant, working with figures and numbers. And as he grew up and went to high school, he was able to get connected with people that would move him forward in that area of his life. And he excelled. He was determined to push forward in that area of accounting and numbers. And he was always a child that seemed to be a saver. He didn't waste money. He saved. He even had, he was even able to sell candies and things at school in order to earn money.
My uncle had the one convenience store directly across from Dillard High. So the business that most etched in my mind is his little convenience store right across. That convenience store, my uncle owned it. My aunt worked at it. It's the only job I've ever known her to have. And on weekends, my mom would work there. So we would go there, my sister and I with Mom. She would work at the store to give my uncle some break from the store, and we would be in the store, hanging around, doing stuff. It is also the place I first went to buy my candy to sell at school. And to the point my uncle say, well, you buying up all my candy here. Let me just tell you where to go, where I go to get it. And so he took me or showed me where to go to get my candies.
We come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it's kind of like in our DNA, like our ancestors are speaking to us. And so to be specific, our grandfather was actually the first licensed plumber in Broward County, and he was an entrepreneur and did very well at that. And then our uncles, they too were entrepreneurs with their own successful grocery store, and then one was a plumber as well. So this entrepreneurial spirit just really runs in our blood. So I think that's, he just got it naturally.
One of the things that's most important about my sister, and I didn't get it, is she actually was the first to go to college, away to college. I went to the military, came back home, did community college. And she used to always say, y'all don't really understand what it means to be away from college. You don't really get it. And so at the time, I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, go sit down. But I didn't get it till I went to Texas. And I realized when you're the first in your family cutting the teeth of a path of something new, it is pressure. It is new. It is a loneliness. It is a way that nobody else quite understands when you're that person.
We call him Ronnie, and I'm his big cousin Ricky. We just a few months apart in age, but we had one thing in common. We had a lot of things in common, but the most basic thing that made us bond was that we both had sisters, but neither one of us had brothers. So we were like brothers. Yeah, we became brothers. But even though we was blood cousins, my mom and sisters. But that bond, it made us strong. And so when he was hurt, I was hurt. And when I was hurt, he was hurt.
They were very close because they enjoyed the same type of activity, which was going fishing. And every opportunity they would get on the weekends, they would find a place nearby because they would walk with their fishing poles and their buckets and their baits and things they needed to fish. And they spent time together fishing. And also when we had holidays, they would be together. And of course, they both enjoyed eating.
Some of my greatest memories started to form at the age of 13 or 14. I have one cousin of mine who, for the most part, all of my memories of doing fun stuff is with him.
He and I were so close until when it was time for him to go to school. That's the first time we actually seen him act out. And it was like, man, Rod is not acting right. His mom said something's wrong with Rod. And, when they found out, they asked him what was wrong. And he wanted to go to school with me at the Lot of the Manners Elementary. So, if you know the surrounding areas, you got to come from way over there to over here. But we made it happen. And those years he came to school with me, those few years, it was like having my brother with me. But, that's how inseparable we were as kids, So it was like my brother, And so that's one of the things that the family still talk about. Like, man, Ronnie wouldn't even go to school unless he didn't want to go to his school, he wanted to go to school with you. And I feel honored, and I feel proud and glad.
As a child, he was always very sure and very certain about what he wanted to do. He had this relentless pursuit of being a CPA. So he was involved in organizations at school like DECA and Academy of Finance. So, he just had, fortunate for him, a track, even from a young child. So really what I guess if I would call it this tenacity that he brought to the table with him from a very young person.
My family, we already knew that something special was going to happen for Ronnie because, he invested his time wisely.
He grew up in church. He and his sisters, they grew up in church. And I didn't credit myself to be the person that would guide them to success. But I kept them in church, and they grew up under good, strong spiritual leadership, and it seemed to have helped them to make decisions in the right direction as to what they were going to do in the future. I would always pray that God would be their lead, guide, and I just credit the Lord for whatever success that he had.
Our structure that our parents gave us in our home with you will be in church, you will be in Sunday school starts at 9, your homework is going to be done because school is important, from our parents gave us the structure we needed to attack and achieve our goals, even in the face of obstacles.
He wasn't handed anything. He knew that anything he wanted, he had to work hard for it. And I think that's growing up in Parkway, that work ethic that you see just so that permeates from him now. He's always working and knowing that he has to work hard to get what he wants.
My youngest child, a baby girl, she's in debate and she said something. She said in one of her debates, she explained, one of the things I like about my dad is he works hard to be successful. It not only impacted me that she said that, it impacted me that she's paid enough attention to realize that. And it impacts me that she'll make that transition in her life to understand if I want to be successful, there's no shortcuts. I got to put in the time. I got to read every book. I got to ask every question. And that's just to be at a 90. If I want to be the leader of the group, I got to go that extra mile.
I had the opportunity to actually participate in and graduate from the Academy of Finance with Mr. Harvey. And I can tell you that this was a very rigorous program where it taught us the importance of accounting, taught us the importance of marketing, taught us the importance of being a successful executive in the world. And I mean, being in your sophomore year in high school and participating in this particular program, it was a game changer. I mean, so we participated in accounting competitions, one of which he placed very high and I placed very high. So you were able to declare at a very early age that, I want to be an accountant when I grow up. I want to be a business executive when I grow up. I want to be a business owner when I grow up, as a result of being exposed to a rigorous business curriculum at Plantation High School.
I remember we were in the high school economics class that he hates that I talk about, because I wasn't in the Academy of Finance, and him and Jonathan Allen and all these future business leaders were in the class, and they were kind of picking on me that they're these business leaders and we're in economics. And so I told them I was going to beat them in that class, and I got the highest grade. We all got an A, but I got the highest A. I beat them future business leaders in that class.
I have one friend who just about once or twice a year will remind me of an economics grade that we got back in, I think we took economics in 10th or 12th grade. That story is refreshing to me because the person knew me back then. And to be able to discuss that was before the titles, the houses, the children. This is who the person was then. Those things are important, and those things endear. Those things are the things that remain when the titles are gone.
The Academy of Finance was really a game changer for Mr. Harvey. It was a game changer for me, and it was a game changer for each and every individual who participated in that first year class of Academy of Finance at Plantation High School.
5 high schools in the whole district, and Plantation High was one. What you had to do was give up all of your electives and only keep your core math and core English, and all of your other classes would be business classes. You had to sign up in the 10th because it was a 2-year program that affected your 11th grade and your 12th grade. So in the Academy of Finance, every semester you took accounting. You also took banking. You had to take in 12th grade your government and economics. We also took marketing, and we also did the stock market game, and we also went to New York. All of this was already scheduled. And so I got into the accounting field or realm by the Academy of Finance. And I was in the inaugural program, the kickoff of it. Me and several other people, Chris Smith, Jonathan Allen, Yolanda McDowell, Kimberly Salisbury, who I found out later is actually related to me many years later. But we were the black kids that, for whatever reason, graduated or gravitated to the program. Got into accounting, and I just loved it, to the point that I would go to my accounting class during lunch. They would give us, back in those days, everything was not computer. It was still paper. And the accounting class was set that you had a 16-week accounting simulation, and they would have like a grocery store or somebody who had a retail store, and you're supposed to do the accounting from soup to nuts over the whole semester. I would be weeks ahead. So when the normal class was in week 4, I would be up to week 6 or 8. When they got to week 8, I would be to week 10 or 12. And so the professor came to me and she said 2 things that really touched me. She says, you can't ask no question in class, because if you ask a question, they're going to be blown, because you already on week 12 and I'm still teaching week 8 or week 7. So we had our little deal that I would ask my questions during lunch. Her name was Gail Miller. And the other thing was, she said, if you really can do this accounting, if you really like it like this, you really need to look at making it a career. And that was one of those matrix moments that resonated in my body. Once she said that, once I got it, I instantly had blinders on. It was nothing else but accounting. Nothing else mattered. And I had to get an A. I got an A in every one of her classes for the 2 years. It was no other grade in her class but an A. And how could I not get an A when I was 4 weeks ahead of the whole class?
If you look at some of our high school pictures right now, on Fridays, Rod Harvey and I, we were dressed in suits. When everyone else would be dressed in their regular Plantation High School jersey, we had suits on. And that started to change the narrative and the appearance of what individuals in Parkway would start wearing. So you had folks who weren't involved in the Academy of Finance would start wearing suits.
From that march forward through the military, back to community college and on to Florida State and the University of Texas, all of that work began here at Plantation High through the Academy of Finance when I was in the 10th grade.
Ronnie, he was always focused. You know, I remember when we were kids, well, as we were like in high school, you know, summertime came. And, you know, so, you know, school's out. It's time to throw it up. Not Ronnie. He wanted to work at the bank, intern at the bank. And to me, it was like, bro, you got to be crazy. But little did I know, you know, he was setting up his future.
My name is Brianna Harvey.
And my name is Brandon Harvey.
We're his children. My dad is a very smart person. He is very diverse in what he can do. He's good at a lot of things, obviously taxes and stuff like that. So
I have an older daughter, and I've been a father for a while. And so she's in a unique position because she's seen the full transition. She was born when I was 18. And so she saw me go from the military back to college, back to KPMG or to KPMG, and to start the business. Having children come later in life, you begin to understand I need to balance my time at work. I need to balance my time with them, and I need to make sure that they have some time that we're together so that they can get a peek into what it looks like. HCT has birthed and put into place probably more African American young accountants than any other firm that I can name. I could go through various organizations and name people and politicians and other places that have worked, been sponsored by. So HCT, under being a professional service firm, has been a fertilizer that have taken people out of colleges, HBCUs, some majority colleges, and given them an opportunity to go on and grow and be at organizations now that's unheard of.
He says you're the first employee.
Yes, I am the first.
How was that experience?
Actually, it was quite interesting when we started. I was the first female when he first started. There was 3 of us in this very small little office.
There are a litany of young accountants out there that he has helped, mentored, given jobs to. There are a lot of people that, you know, they needed work, and Mr. Harvey found them something to do, whether by some contract work, hooked them up with a job. You know, he started off with a Big 4 firm, and he decided to branch out on his own. So he knows when people, you know, start off with those big firms and decide they want to branch out on their own, sometimes he's that bridge that helps them get to their own success. He's not somebody that tries to close the door behind him. He's not one of those crabs in a barrel. He's somebody that allows people to stand on his shoulder so he can help them improve as well.
He gave us such a variety that we were able to learn how to audit various sectors, and we were never pigeonholed. So what that allowed for me is when I went from, you know, for-profit organizations, I had the skills. When I went to governmental, I had the skills.
I was an employee of Mr. Harvey and of the firm back in the early 2000s. When I first got elected, I left my public sector job and started doing business development for Mr. Harvey and the firm. I remember when we first moved into the office, right, and we hadn't really built it out yet. So where my desk was, because the office used to be a doctor's office, my desk was next to a doctor's sink. So when my paperwork would be here, and there would be a working sink right next to me. So if I needed some water, I had an opportunity to get it right there. But that's, you know, that he bought the office bigger than he needed it because he saw a vision. He knew that he was going to get bigger and he would need the space, and now they're busting at the seams.
When you think about the work that he has put in and helping staff and helping to develop them. And the skill sets that he demonstrates from a personal level is very contagious. And I believe if modeled, it only adds value to the individual.
If we can run together, we can draft, we can pull, we can pace each other to get to the finish line. So running by yourself is great. But if I can run with a pack where I might get weak and want to fall back, but if the pack is still pushing, I can make it. Well, guess what your employees are? That's your pack. That's my group. I need us to be together. And so will the person come on board and be a part of the pack?
We did from auditing to taking out the trash to answering the phones. There were times we were the receptionist, we were the janitor, we were the auditor, the whole nine. So, I mean, he was very strict about making sure that the office ran as if there were 20 people and there are only 3 of us.
My name is Shirley Gibson, and I also use Honorable Shirley Gibson because I was the founding mayor of the city of Miami Gardens, as well as the first elected mayor. In any business, you have to strive to be the best in that business. And you have to do that constantly because you have to compete. And if you don't understand that, I think you find yourself from time to time not able to be in the game to compete. You really get left out of the game. And so how do you define yourself differently? It's how well do you do your job? How well do you really advocate with your business? How well is the business being presented at all times, even when you are not physically there?
He was never the one to say, okay, I'm just supervising and I'm just delegating. I've worked on audits where we were elbow to elbow, literally, you know? And so when the lottery came in, it was no different. If he had to help, if he had to put his hand in it, if he had to make sure the success of it, I mean, he did it. And, he made sure by that time, we were so accustomed to the work. At this time, we're all growing, not just, age-wise, but we're also growing professionally. So by the time we get to the lottery, I mean, we were like, okay, you know what I mean? So we were ready to go.
I think it's great that he has that level of trust in his staff. And I think because he has that level of trust in the staff is, I'm determined not to let him down.
I'll go into a city and I know this city is functioning because Harvey is doing their auditing and making sure their books are okay. I see a lottery ticket and know that Rod Harvey has a contract with them. The little boy from Parkway with them high water corduroys and that anchor chain is now auditing the Florida lottery.
That contract still is the most exciting contract we've had. Words cannot speak how we felt at that time to be awarded the contract to monitor the lottery. And I'll just set the stage. At that time, the lottery, which was done in Orlando, Florida, had 32 states. So you're not just talking about Florida, you're talking about 32 states, people pooling their money on a chance to win, and we, our firm, being selected to monitor, certify that lottery. If I'm 70 years old and I'm sitting talking to my grandchildren, I can say, believe it or not, Grandpa used to certify the lottery. And they're like, Grandpa, come on, stop it. You got to stop it with these stories. Like,
So I'm telling people, man, y'all got to watch the Florida lottery when the ball bounce, because this my cousin right here, boy. You understand this? So when the ball drop and everything, they get the number, look at the bottom right there, and it's going to say Roger Harvey. You know what I'm saying? That boy from Lauderdale, Parkway. You know what I mean? Get your chips right because he got it together. You know what I'm saying?
I think that was one of his greatest accomplishments because, there's several people bidding for this. So, and for you to be selected, I was extremely proud of him.
Contracts like that put you in a place where you say, okay, we can do this. However we do it, we do it. And so people begin to pick up on it. The universe begins to pick up on it. And now it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because as you walk, as you talk, you become. And so those are the kind of contracts in year 7, year 8 that people look now and say, well, you just seem to just have this, well, yeah, because the 7-year-old showed up at an NBA game and played a couple games. And by the playoffs, they're like, my man going for 30 every night. Yeah, because I know I can do it.
People refer to him as Mr. Harvey because he has a structure about it, and he wants to build a image, and he wants people to understand that this is a professional establishment.
We had to call each other by our last names. So he would, pull me aside and he'll say, Miss Casey, listen, you're smart, you can do it. I need you to go up there, fake it till you make it.
Our dad and mom personally just grew us up knowing that we always have to respect adults and respect our elders, so we can never call them by their first names. We call them Mrs., Mr., so that's how we've grown up respectfully. Our dad even does it to younger people. He just has that aspect of respect for everybody, and everybody deserves that respect, and that's what he's taught us.
He applied came in to be interviewed for a job, which was actually the auditors for the city of Miami Gardens, and the city had, went out and advertised, and he came with his staff to present to the council, and that was my first really meeting him when he came with his staff.
What did you think of
when he first came?
Yeah,
I was like, wow, I like this guy because he came, he was really prepared, did a wonderful interview. Actually, it was more of a presentation to the council.
So he has the experience of the big accounting firm, and he took a leap of faith and started his own firm. And to do that and to be in the game for 20 years, I think is a testimony to his drive, to his determination, and his commitment to developing business acumen.
I feel actually excited that he made it this far because this business is very successful, and HCT has been here for a while, so I'm happy for him.
Giving is a part of growth, and I do it because sometimes I see the need. I've learned that what may be important to somebody else, $100, may not be as important to me now. The other thing about giving that I've learned over the years, especially as I gotten older, is the ability to give allows you to touch people in ways that words don't. I believe that giving to family, close friends, people in need is a part of developing you and developing the community.
From the time that we finished college, Harvey has been there with the community service to reach back. I mean, he does the free accounting for the different programs that we have. He's out there. If we're doing a community cleanup, he's out there with a t-shirt on, cleaning up. He's volunteering and coming and doing financial services for people and really just doing whatever it takes.
Iron strengthens iron, so we try to motivate one another to accomplish, great things and to do great things for our county and for our community. So I think that he's not only a good business person, he's a great community servant as well.
I would have to say that he definitely had a vision, and his vision was to have multiple offices, to be one of the best minority firms, in South Florida. And I think I know he accomplished that, hence why we're having this interview. But he always saw himself bigger than what we were.
He's like an engine that does not stop. And he's committed to whatever he does, seeing it through, and he's going to make sure it gets done.
If he was ever nervous about something, or if he was ever unsure about something, I never saw it. He always appeared to be the rock. So I think that was a good thing, because if he broke down, I would have probably definitely broke down. But he always exuded this strong character, that, he would figure it out and somehow it would get done. So I think he was a very good example of showing us that, he was a very good leader, that, and we trusted that, which is why we followed him and we stayed in the company and we worked hard. And because we saw it not just as this is, Harvey Branker or Harvey Covington, we saw it as this is our firm too.
We want to be an American brand that can be trusted, that can be in the community and that can continue to be a foundation, that can be fertilizer to the community, that can continue to provide services, but at a high level.
I do believe that as he go along, he's going to reach out to other people because he has a desire to help people coming along, young people, teenagers and young starting out accountants that want to follow his example. He has a heart for those people and he wants to see them move forward. So he's not a person that would put his foot down and hold anybody else down. He wants to see other people succeed.
This year, being 2020 and hitting 20 years, brings in some creative thought. What do you do going forward? Being the age that I am brings in some creative thought. What we're looking to do is to replicate our success with multiple brands and multiple locations under our platform.
I couldn't write, his story or even say, where he's going to be next 5 years or 10 years. So as a child, I couldn't do that. But I know for a fact that whatever he faces, he's going to overcome. He's going to excel and that he's going to go to higher heights than where he is now. This is definitely not the end of the Roderick Harvey story or the legacy or saga. There is much more to come.
It was an amazing ride. That's all I can say. I had a great time. Also, I want to know, does he still carry his lunchbox? Let me tell you, I worked for him for like 5 years, okay? And every day for 5 years, he had that blue lunchbox. I think it was blue and gray. I want to know.
The great part about the celebration, it wasn't gained through a straight and arrow. It wasn't a straight line. It was deviations. It was roadblocks. It was things that got put in his life that would deter anybody else and have them go on a different path. But Rod does what he says he's going to do. He kept on that path. And now we're here today celebrating the success of his firm because back in economics class, he said he was going to do this.
I'm just excited that he could stick around and teach us the ways of life so we don't do bad decisions that will cost us our life.
I'm just really grateful that he stuck around. He's raising us. So that's really nice.
I feel good about what I've done where I am, but I'm also very balanced in knowing I can't still get out there too fast. I can't still folly from the mistakes in the past. And I gotta maintain just enough in the tank to get me to the finish.